Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
For our study today, we'll continue from where we stopped in our previous lesson, and today we are looking at Nigeria's membership to international organizations. First of all, we will look into Nigeria's membership. We will look into Nigeria's membership with the OAU. The OAU is an acronym which stands for the Organization of African Unity. This group was founded on May 25, 1963 at Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. 30 independent African states attended the inaugural meeting, and then the group was intended to unite all African states against the forces of imperialism and colonialism, and for them to work towards resolving social, economic, and political problems of Africa. The aims and objectives of the OAU includes the following. Number one, it aimed at promoting unity and solidarity among African states. Number two, it has its objective to ensuring good living standard for the people of African descent. Number three, member states agreed that they should jointly and cooperatively defend their territories against external aggression. Number four, they also agreed to work towards the eradication of all forms of imperialism and colonialism on the continent of Africa. Number five, member states agreed to work together with other groups, example the UNO, to promote international peace and security. These are the objectives and aims of the OAU. We now go into the principles of the OAU. Number one, it has the principle of sovereignty. This principle denotes that all member states are sovereign and none should be under the control of any other state, as the respect for the sovereignty of member states is a major principle. Hence, every member state on its own has the supreme authority to govern its territory without any interference from the outside. Principle number two, settlement of disputes. The member states of the OAU agreed in the principle that all disputes among member states should be settled peacefully. Number three, emancipation of African territories. The member states work together cooperatively to free the entire continent from colonial rule. Number four, equality of states. Member states believed on the fact that every member state are equal, as no state should supersede the other state or dominate the other state. Equal rights should be granted to all member states. Number five, they had the principle of non-interference. This principle denotes the fact that no member state has the right to interfere in the internal affairs of other member states. Number six, we have the policy of non-alignment, which stipulates that members have faith in the policy that they are not to align or to have connection with anything that has to do with any of the blocks, be it the Eastern Bloc or the Western Bloc, as this was a way of encouraging imperialism. So their acceptance not to align to any of these groups formed one of the principles for which the OAU was founded. Number seven, total condemnation of all forms of subversive activities, political assassination perpetrated in neighboring states or other states within the continent. These are the principles upon which the OAU was formed. We now come to the organs of the OAU. First of all, we have the Assembly of Heads of States and government. This assembly is the highest and most powerful of all the organs of the organization. It is the body that takes final decision on matters affecting member states of the group. It is made up of all the heads of state and governments of all member states. This council or this assembly meets once in a year. When there is emergency, they can also meet, and a two-thirds majority of member country who votes in favor of any principle is being upheld. The next one we have is the Council of Ministers. The council consists of the foreign or external affairs ministers or any other ministers appointed by the government for this purpose. For example, the Minister of External Affairs in Nigeria is a member of this council, as he represents Nigeria in the council. Other member states also have their ministers of foreign affairs to represent them, as this council meets twice a year to discuss its issues and to know and to discuss on the matters that affects the organization. The council prepares the agenda for the meetings of heads of state and government and equally implements their decision. The third one is the General Secretariat. The Secretariat is the administrative organ of the organization, with its headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The head of the Secretariat is the Secretary General, who is the chief officer of the Secretariat. He is assisted by 2 assistant secretaries. All of them are appointed by the Assembly of Heads of States on the recommendation of the Council of Ministers. The Secretary General stays in office for a period of 4 years and may be reappointed for another term. We have the next organ to be Commission of Mediation, Conciliation and Arbitration. This organ was mainly set up to settle disputes among the member states of the organization. About 21 members from different member states make up this commission, and it is for a period of 5 years. It has Addis Ababa, Ethiopia as its headquarters. It has a president and a vice president. Membership of this commission, the activities are determined by the Assembly of Heads of State and Government to facilitate and promote the work of the organization. Other 5 specialized commissions were set up. These are: 1. Educational and Cultural Commission. 2. Economic and Social Commission. 3. Health, Sanitation and Nutrition Commission. 4. Defense Commission. 5. Scientific, Technical and Research Commission. And then the last organ of the OAU is the Liberation Committee. This committee was set up in 1963 with headquarters in Tanzania. This committee was set up mainly to assist African territories who are still under colonial rule to gain independence. This body also was to assist financially and materially the liberation movements in Africa. Example, SWAPO in Namibia, MPLA in Angola, etc. It is worthy of note, and it will interest you to know that the Liberation Committee has long ceased to exist because all African countries are now independent. These are the organs of the OAU. We now look into the achievements of the OAU. Number 1, the organization served as a forum for African leaders to discuss African affairs. Number 2, the organization has allowed the African states to take a united stand at the UNO. Number 3, the Liberation Committee of OAU had supported nationalist movements in countries fighting for independence. Example, Angola, Namibia, Mozambique, etc. Number 4, the OAU has contributed to the settlement of many disputes among African states. For example, OAU played a useful role during the Nigerian Civil War. Number 5, the OAU has encouraged regional and economic cooperation in Africa. Example, ECOWAS. These and many others constitutes the achievements of the OAU. Having achieved all these things, in which areas have they been criticized to be weak? This takes us to the next discourse, which is on the weaknesses of the OAU. Number 1, due to frequent changes of government, internal strife and conflicts, many African states are politically unstable. That is to say that the OAU has led to political instability. Number 2, some member states of the organization still owe allegiance to their former colonial masters. Number 3, the OAU has no standing army. Areas where there are conflicts that require military interventions cannot receive appropriate attention. Number 4, irregular payment of dues by member states is affecting the attainment of the goals of the organization. Number 5, decisions of the organization may not be binding on the members. This is because all member states are sovereign states. These are some of the weaknesses of the OAU. With this, we have come to the end of our discussion on the OAU. We now move straight into the African Union, AU. Looking at the historical perspective, we can say that the OAU gave birth to the AU. The OAU today is no more in existence. What we have today is AU. Listen attentively and get this. 37th summit of the OAU, held between the 9th and 13th of July 2001, was the last summit of the organization. It also marked the birth of a new organization known as the African Union, which was adopted by 50 of the 53 countries. Consequently, on Monday, 8th July 2002, African leaders formally marked the end of the OAU and the birth of African Union, AU, in its place. 40 of the continent's 53 presidents, head of government and monarchs gathered in Durban, South Africa to inaugurate the new union, which is the AU. We now go to the institutions of the AU. Number 1, we have the establishment of Committee of Intelligence and Security Services of Africa, in bracket CISA. This committee has its functions to include the following. Number 1, we have the establishment of Committee of Intelligence and Security Services of Africa, in bracket CISA. It has its function to address Africa's myriad of security issues. The second one we have is the African Union Constituent Act. This act empowers members to intervene in any of AU's member states where massive violence and disorder is taking place, even if it is caused by misgovernance. Number 3, we have the Economic, Social and Cultural Council of the AU. This was established under the provision of Article 5 and 22 of the African Union Constituent Act, with the function of serving as a vehicle for building a strong partnership between governments across the continent of Africa. The first president is Professor Wangari Maathai of Kenya, and the first deputy president is Mr. Ayodele Aderinwale of Nigeria. Number 4, we have the Peace and Security Council. The Peace and Security Council is the council that looks into peacekeeping in the AU member states. Number 5, we have the Secretariat. The Secretariat is the commission which has the features of retaining the elements of OAU with a conference of heads of states and government as its top decision-making body. Foreign ministers of member states to be grouped into an executive council. The conference of heads of state will decide on the powers of the foreign ministers. Number 6, we have the African Union Parliament. African parliamentarians will for the first time debate on continental-wide issues at a new Pan-African Parliament. This parliament was to advise the heads of states and governments of the African Union. The next one is the structure of the African Union. The African Union is modeled in parts after the European Union. The 4th ordinary section of Assembly of African Union came up with the following decisions. African Parliament to be located in South Africa, African Central Bank in West Africa, African Investment Bank in North Africa, African Monetary Fund in Central Africa, African Court of Justice in East Africa. We now go to the aims and goals of the AU. What are the aims and goals of the AU? Number 1, a commitment to democracy and fundamental human rights. Number 2, a commitment to economic development. Number 3, to end conflicts in Africa. Number 4, to eradicate poverty, disease, wants, and ignorance in the continent. Number 5, to foster deep and strong political, economic, and social integration among member states. These are the aims or goals of the AU. We now go to the next organization, which is called New Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD. NEPAD should be seen as a homegrown African initiative to overcome the age-long obstacles to African development. This body is assumed to be in partnership with the international community, the group of 8 industrialized countries, which includes the Russian Federation, Germany, France, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, and United States of America. It is worthy of note to mention that what is now popularly known by the acronym NEPAD came into being upon the joining together of the Millennium Partnership for the African Recovery Program and the Omega Plan at the requests of the OAU, which is now the African Union. It was once known as the New African Initiative. It came into existence in October 2001 out of the several plans and discussions which lasted some years between South Africa's President Thabo Mbeki, Nigeria's President Olusegun Obasanjo, and the Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. We have NEPAD's commitments to include the following. 1. NEPAD is committed to peace, security, and good governance. Number 2, to uphold democracy and human rights. Number 3, committed to the actualization of prudent economic management and sustainable development. Number 4, reduce conflicts and have greater access to world markets. And number 5, fight in its entirety corruption, which had taken the center stage of the continent's political soul, impacting negatively on developmental efforts. These are the commitments of NEPAD. We now move straight to the Commonwealth stroke the League of Nations. The Commonwealth is defined as a free association of the former territories or colonies of the British Empire. These are territories that were colonized by Britain worldwide and later granted independence. What are the aims and objectives of the Commonwealth? Number 1, promotion of common understanding among the members. Number 2, solution to problems in education, trade, science, medicine, agriculture, sports, etc. Number 3, respecting the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of members and non-member states. Number 4, promotion of sporting activities, which is to foster the spirit of friendship and love, and this is held every 4 years. Number 5, to come together to discuss problems as it affects member states. And lastly, number 6, to work within the framework of the UN Charter and for the promotion of international peace and security. What are the organs of the Commonwealth? Number 1, we have the Prime Minister Conferences. This is the paramount organ of the Commonwealth. Membership has to do with the heads of state and governments of member states or their accredited representatives. This conference at the Kingston's Prime Minister's Conference in 1964 agreed to establish a Commonwealth Secretariat, and it became a reality in 1965. Among the functions of the Prime Minister's Conference is that it receives and approves the budget of the organization. It also appoints the Secretary General of the organization. It also discusses issues and problems as they relate or as they affect member states and recommend measures for such problems. It also has the power to sanction or suspend a member state that does not respect the objectives upon which the organization was founded. For example, Nigeria was suspended from the Commonwealth in 1995 for the abuse of human rights, that is, the execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa and other 8 Ogoni citizens. The next one is that it receives and approves the reports of the organization submitted to it by the Secretariat. The second organ is the Secretariat. The Secretariat is headed by a Secretary General and is located in London. This organ was established after the Prime Minister's Conference in Kingston, Jamaica in 1965. Arnold Smith was the first Secretary General and he hails from Canada. He was the Secretary General between 1965 and 1975. And today we have Chief Emeka Anyoko from Nigeria, who also was a Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and he served from 1992 to 1995. The functions of the Secretariat include the following. 1. It organizes the conferences of heads of states and government of member states. Number 2. It performs administrative and correspondence functions for the organization. Number 3. It prepares the report of the organizations. We are looking now at the gains derivable from Commonwealth membership. Is there any gain derivable from being a member of the Commonwealth? If there is, we will look into them. Number one, there is Commonwealth scholarship for deserving students. Number two, the richer states help the poor ones through granting of loans or financial aid. Number three, member states help to discuss common problems, ensuring closer and friendly ties among them. Number four, member states engage in sporting activities every 4 years, thereby strengthening the existing relationship among them. Number five, English language is the official language, which makes it easy for communication and understanding among member states. These are some of the gains derivable from Commonwealth membership. We'll go straight away to the next one, which is the League of Nations. The League of Nations was established in 1919 to prevent an outbreak of another war after the First World War. Due to the devastating effects of the First World War, the leaders of the world came together to form an organization that will prevent an outbreak of another war. And this, which was formed to promote peace and security, was the League of Nations. What are the reasons for the establishment of the League of Nations? Number one, to remove causes of wars. This was made possible by reducing procurement of national armament to the barest minimum, so as to be in line with national safety. Number two, to stop dispute between nations. In the events of dispute procedures, to stop dispute between nations. In the event of disputes, procedures were in place to prevent such leading to war, and that such disputes, if capable of producing war, should be submitted to the arbitration or to the judicial settlement or to inquiry by the League Council. Number three, keeping the arrangements. If a member should go to war, provision was made to help the member states that did not break the promises. Those states that broke the arrangement should face trade or financial sanction. Number four, the League of Nations should also recommend to states the contribution to be made in terms of armed forces so as to protect the covenants of the League. Number five, it was also to supervise trade in arms and ammunition. The League was entrusted with the supervision of trade in arms and ammunition for the common interest of the members. This is aimed at enthroning peace and to prevent wars. Arguments against the League of Nations is the next discourse we will look into. Number one, the League helped in. We are looking into arguments against the League of Nations. Number one, the League did not succeed in settling disputes between powerful states. For example, the 1931-33 Sino or China-Japan disputes. Number two, the League was not wide enough, as the USA remained outside it, and later Japan, Germany and Italy left the body. Number three, the League was a tool of manipulation in the hands of some powerful, rich nations. Number four, any nation can secede from the League without coercion or restraint. Number five, the League lacked sovereign power to operate and formally ceased to exist in 1947. This is the crux of our discourse on the League of Nations as one of the international organizations. We now go straight ahead into the United Nations organizations, which we know as the UNO. The UNO came into existence in 1945. This was as a result of the failure of the League of Nations, formed in 1999 after the First World War, to prevent the outbreak of another war. Example, the Second World War of 1939 to 45, USA, Britain, China, Soviet Union and France, and about 50 other states came together to draw a charter on 24th October 1945 at San Francisco in USA. The essence of this charter was desire to maintain peace and security among nations of the world. Admission into the UNO is open, and currently there are about 185 nations making up the body. Nigeria was the 99th member and was admitted after her independence. It is open to all peace-loving nations of the world. The principles of the UNO. Number 1. International disputes are to be settled by peaceful means, and it must be done in a way as to avoid endangering international peace and security. Number 2. The UNO is based on the principle of sovereign equality of member states. Number 3. The UNO has the capacity to provide military assistance when it is called to do so. Number 4. Members of the body has to agree in good faith to fulfill the obligation as obtained in the charter. Number 5. It is to ensure that members and non-members do not comport themselves in a manner that could be detrimental to the maintenance of international peace and security. These are some of the principles of the UNO. We will now go straight to the organs of the UNO. The first organ is the General Assembly. The General Assembly is made up of all member states. 5 representatives are drawn from each member state into the assembly. They meet once in a year, but there could be a special section in the Security Council of member states request for it. A president is elected from one of the member states to head the assembly for a term of 1 year, and it is rotated among member states. The General Assembly is the organ that discusses issues pertaining to world peace and security. They also passes resolutions and recommends same to the Security Council. It has the power to vote on issues of international importance. It discusses and approves the annual budget of the UNO. It also approves key appointments. Example, the appointment of the Secretary General of the organization. It controls the activities of the specialized agencies of the UNO. For example, the UNESCO, the World Health Organization, etc. The General Assembly also has the power to admit new members into the organization. The second organ is the Security Council. The Security Council is one of the organs of the UNO, and it is assumed to be the most powerful organization of the UNO. Formerly, it was made up of 5 permanent and 6 non-permanent members, but it was enlarged in 1965, bringing 6 non-permanent members to 10, making it 15 members. The permanent members are USA, Britain, Russia, China, and France. The 10 non-permanent members are elected for a term of 2 years from among the member states. A retiring member is not eligible for immediate re-election. The Security Council is has the main responsibility to ensure world peace and security. It investigates disputes and suggests ways of finding solutions to them. It selects candidates for the post of the Secretary General and recommends him to the General Assembly for approval. It also ratifies application from states seeking membership of the organization. And Finally, the Council take diplomatic, economic, and other measures that can give effect to its decisions, and to employ air, naval, or land forces to maintain and restore international peace. These are the functions of the Security Council. The next one we have is the Secretariat. The Secretariat is the administrative unit of the UNO with headquarters in New York. It is headed by the Secretary General, who stays in office for 5 years and could be re-elected. The following are the past Secretary Generals of the organization. We have Trygve Lie of Norway, 1946 to 53. We have Dag Hammarskjöld of Sweden, 1953 to 1961. We have U Thant of Burma, 1961 to 72. We have Kurt Waldheim of Austria, 1972 to 82. We have Javier Perez de Cula of Peru, 1982 to 1992. We have Boutros Ghali of Egypt, 1993 to 1998. We have Dr. Kofi Annan of Ghana, 19